4 long days of counting in the U.S. presidential election, it is now projected that former Vice President Joe Biden will be America's 46th president. Now, this stems from the fact that the former Delaware senator has crossed the threshold of 270 electoral votes needed to win the elections. Mr. Biden has since accepted the challenge, promising to reunite America after very bitter campaigns. Now, what does Joe Biden's victory mean for the U.S., her allies, and adversaries? We'll find out in the discussion segment. My name is Victor Azu. Welcome to Insight. Elizabeth Omori, as usual, is on standby with the media review segment. So what will it be, Elizabeth?
Well, this week on the media review segment, we'll be taking a look at safety and journalism. How do we ensure that journalists, while they gather and share information, do not face physical or moral threats? That will be our focus on the media review segment.
Very well then, let's cut to the chase. I have been joined on the discussion segment by Paul Ejime. He is an international affairs analyst and joins us via Zoom from the UK. A pleasure to have you join us on the program, Paul.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Now, here in the studio, I am also joined by Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst. Welcome to Insight.
My pleasure.
Now, let me begin with Paul, who is there in the UK. What's the task before Biden, both locally and on the global stage, in your opinion?
Well, he has his job cut out for him. Like you said, locally, he has to unite and heal a divided, deeply divided America. It has never been so since history. And so with the consequences, let's not call it damage, of the Donald Trump presidency. Americans are divided on racial issue, on gender, on religion, ethnicity, economy. Many people are out of work and then lost their mortgage, houses, and all that. And then look at the pandemic. More than 200, going to 230 people, 1,000 Americans dying, not in a war. And some of these were preventable. So, and this is what that divisiveness that the presidency of Donald Trump had brought is the first thing that the Biden administration will have to tackle to make sure that Americans, and you heard him in his more or less acceptance speech. Remember that President Donald Trump still says he wants to go to court to challenge the outcome.
Yes, I was going to come to that. In fact, that's why I'm going to ask now. Since he's in court about now, how do you see that playing out?
Well, I think with the institution, the system in America, I think they will sort that out. They will place Trump where he's supposed to be in history, because he's not the first and he's not going to be the last American president. So the American democracy, with all its faults, with all the fact, look at this year, Americans are lining up to vote in a very, the site was unbecoming of an old democracy, and everything that has happened has gone wrong. So I'm sure that the American system will resist, is resilient, will take care of whatever Trump has thrown at it, and then go on. We were talking about internationally. There is also a healing to be done there. President Trump didn't believe in multilateral strategy. He believed, he said America first, and then make America great again, as if America has never been great. You look at the climate change agreement, you look at WTO, you look at WHO, and then even with the European Union. Everywhere, I think there is so much to do to bring partnership, to bring unity in the world, and let the world see that it is not, no country, no matter how big or how small, can go it alone.
All right, thank you very much, Paul, for your opening comments. Now, let me get back here in the studio with Jide Ojo. Jide, what is your reading of the body language of world leaders upon, well, the projection, some say projection because he hasn't been officially declared, of Biden as president?
Well, the world leaders are very much respecting that projection because that has been the norm, it has been the tradition, it has been the convention of how U.S. president emerges. The media does the projection based on votes that have been tabulated and official figures reeled out. And it's just like what our INEC will do here, where the margin of lead is such that the first runner-up cannot catch up with you. Even though all the totality of the votes may not have been counted, they will look at where your stronghold is. If the bulk of the ballot papers that are yet to be counted is from your stronghold, and you are having a comfortable lead, they project you to have won. But that has worked for the American system over the ages, more than 200 years. But the issue is that the world leaders have come to respect that norm, that tradition, that convention, that a new leader has emerged in America. And you could see from UK to Canada to Iran to Israel to almost all of them have started congratulating the president-elect Joe Biden. Even within the shores of America, George W. Bush, former president, who happens to be a Republican president, has come out to congratulate. Some elected Republican governors have also come out to senators. Mitt Romney has congratulated, and quite a number of others as the days go by. And it's looking like in the coming days, Donald Trump may actually concede defeat. We must know that, concession is not part of American jurisprudence. It's also part of it's just part of the norm. It's part of the values. Civility. It's part of the civility. So if he fails to concede, the system will take care of him at the appropriate time. Right now, you could see, even from the time of, before the projection, before the Pennsylvania the result was completely projected in favor of Joe Biden. The moment the counting of that vote for Pennsylvania overtook that of the lead by the Republican Party, or in other words, Donald Trump, the Secret Service immediately beefed up security around Joe Biden. As at that time, that was on Friday, as at that time, there has not been projection that he has won Pennsylvania to take his tally to 273. So that is the system. It's almost on autopilot.
And that's where we talk about institutionalizing a lot of things. The institution just acts. It doesn't matter who is in power or who is not. But another matter is a ticket that happens to be historic. Joe Biden is going to be the oldest American president to take the oath. But then Kamala Harris, the first person of color to take that office, the first woman among, a couple of other firsts. How significant is her emergence in all of this?
This year's U.S. election is very, very significant. Let's start from home front. 3 Nigerians have been elected into the Congress and Senate in the U.S. 3 Nigerians, so 2 male, 1 female, and I congratulate them. 2 is the history-making oldest president and one of the youngest senator in the U.S. history, Joe Biden. He became a senator in 1972, after the 1972 election, and he was alleged to be the 5th youngest senator-elect in the history of America. And he has served from 1973 when he was inaugurated to 2009 when he became the vice president. And you can just see the wealth of experience behind this soon to be 78-year-old man. And so now he's the oldest. Now we have the first vice president who is a female, a woman of color, a black African-American, they call her Kamala Harris. Now, the other thing that is unique to this election is both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are senators. They have wealth of experience in the other arm of government, which is the legislative arm of government, which they will bring to bear.
They have comrades. It's easy to say, I'm one of you.
Bipartisanship. It will be easy to cut deals, I mean, in the right words, not in a derogatory manner, to form a bipartisan, governance, because Joe Biden has made a lot of friends across the Republican over the years. And another thing that stands to their credit is the wealth of experience as the chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee of the Senate. So even in terms of international relations, Joe Biden is well posited, bearing no ill health, because the only thing that could mitigate the success of Joe Biden is if he falls sick. But at least he's in good shape of health. He ran a very robust campaign. And the other history that was made is the highest turnout of voters. Highest turnout of voters in that election. Over about 150 million Americans voted in that election, with 102 million of that 150 million that voted during the pre-election period, which is allowed by the American electoral system. This is even the highest number of votes being recorded during a pandemic. America has never had any election during a pandemic in the past, but this year, because of that pandemic, a lot of people decided to vote by mail-in ballot and early voting, which then means that they were able to take advantage of early voting, which include diaspora voting, out-of-country voting, military voting, and quite a number of others. So you have even less than, it is only about 1/3 of the voting population that cast their ballot on November 3. So these are epoch-making events in the U.S. 2020 elections.
What does this Biden win, so-called projected, what does it mean for America's foreign relations?
It augured well. It's going to augur well for the American foreign relations. We know America for what it is, the values that America upholds, the value of democratic consolidation in many other countries. I mean, that was the value that Donald Trump eroded in his 4 years. You are not practicing what you are preaching. You recall that ahead of Edo governorship election, Donald Trump administration actually put some Nigerians on travel restriction because, according to them, they were fingered as having been involved in election violence and rigging. But here you are, a sitting president claiming that he has been rigged out of office, his mandate has been stolen. And this is doing without any concrete evidence to back up his claims. And we don't know America to be very frivolous in that manner. It is usually that whatever America does, in fact, our former president said America will know if anything is missing in Nigeria. That's the level of thoroughness that was believed that America possess. So when you have a president that eroded those core values, which is integrity, honesty, you can see how many of his tweets have been flagged by Twitter because of not having unsubstantiated claims. So the point is, I will expect Joe Biden's foreign policy to be one that would look at damage control of everything negative that Donald Trump has upheld in the last. That's not to say for Africa or Nigeria that we are going to have a better deal. Recall that I've been asked on a number of media channels. I was
going to ask if there's anything to cheer for Nigeria.
There could be something to cheer in terms of civility, honor, camaraderie. But in terms of economic support, it may be far in coming in the sense that America is grappling with economic recession right now, occasioned by coronavirus, COVID-19. An estimated 240,000 plus people have died, millions of people infected. And unfortunately for Donald Trump, in the week of election, they got to the new peak where an average of 100,000 people, new infections were being recorded on a daily basis. Now that, as of today, the Joe Biden is putting together a crack team of people, experts that will help him to put the issue of COVID-19 under control. And that is, so America first policy will remain. But in terms of how America will treat its allies, how America's multilateralism will be restored, in which case you are not going to be pursuing an isolationist agenda of we and them. It's going to be cooperation. And maybe the only thing we may gain if World Trade Organization decided to defer the final appointment of the DG of that organization to maybe after the swearing of Joe Biden. Maybe Joe Biden will listen to the appeal of President Buhari and allow our own Okonjo-Iweala to be the next DG because of majority support she has garnered. But we saw how Donald Trump blocked that effectively. Yes. That is not the kind of person Nigerians should lend support to. But the point is that foreign policy, given the expertise that Joe Biden has acquired over the decades, I think he will have a more friendly foreign policy direction to the rest of the world.
Now, but in trying to make this work best for Nigerians and Nigeria, what should be the approach of the Nigerian government towards cutting the relationship of Joe Biden ahead of time to get, a favorable kind of relationship from him?
Well, the president, I think, has congratulated him. Nigerian president has congratulated him and Kamala Harris. And I think that at some point they will be meeting. It's either through Zoom. Now, most of the meetings are held through teleconferencing. Absolutely. So we have Zoom, Skype, and all of that, which is also American technology, by the way. So the meeting will soon hold, and I think at that point the president will table some of our requests. But I think we should not be thinking of going cap in hand to U.S., thinking that we'll get any financial support. There may even be a cut in USAID support to Africa and Nigeria because of the own challenge that the country currently has. Your charity always begins at home. You cannot have millions of your people in isolation centers recuperating from COVID-19, and then you'll be doing Father Christmas across the globe. So there might be a cut in the funding support to USAID across the globe. That's the United States Agency for International Development. But whatever little we get from USAID and from other multilateral sources headed by the U.S., like all these Bretton Woods institutions, IMF and the World Bank, which are based in U.S. and in which U.S. has a lot of financial interest, we should make use of those opportunities maximally. Then there is AGOA, African Growth Opportunity that was put in place by George W. Bush administration, which is still functional. I think in terms of trade relations, we can have a fairer trade under Joe Biden than we have under Donald Trump. Fairer trade in the sense that our export, if you look at the trade deficit between Nigeria and U.S., we are at a disadvantage. We import so many items from U.S., whereas they only took our oil and, let me shock you, peanuts, groundnut. That's the second major thing that America buys from Nigeria. Apart from our oil, the next thing is groundnut. And what value? You can see almost all the automobiles, laptops, computers, very many gadgets, electronic devices we purchase, millions, even food. There are food, wheat that we use in making bread. Most of them are imported from U.S. So we need to look at fairer trade with U.S. than going up.
But do we have the muscle to do what a Donald Trump, for instance, did with China? Does Nigeria have the muscle? Are we at an advantage to make such bargains?
We have to put ourselves there. See, power is not served a la carte. You can't express to receive crumbs. I think it would be a wrong approach if we go up and expecting America to dole out money to us to fight COVID-19 or to ginger our economy. What I believe is our best sure bet is using the African Growth AGOA, African Growth Opportunity Act, that was put in place by the George W. Bush administration. And now that we have AFTA, That's Africa Free Trade Zone Agreement that was signed by about 53 or 54 African countries 2 years ago. We can look at that and get a African Union to push for a better trade relations with the U.S. And at an individual level, if we start processing our raw materials into semi-finished products and finished products, we'll have a better deal. Do you understand? Why don't you think of what you can make from that groundnut rather than exporting raw groundnut to U.S., raw yam to U.S., raw agricultural products, cocoa to U.S. Why don't you process them into either semi-finished or finished product, and then you have better trade bargain with U.S. that continue to export these materials in raw form. We have solid minerals in tons, commercial quantity. We can export. We can have better trade agreements on some of these solid minerals, which I don't think America has.
All right. I hope it's something that our leaders will explore, given that Joe Biden, of course, will come in as a brand new president for America. But in the meantime, let me run off back to Paul on Zoom, who is joining us via Zoom from the UK. Paul, are you there now?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So you may want to round off your thoughts on, the mood in the international community, and perhaps you should take along with it your opinion on what is in there for Nigeria and Nigerians.
Well, Nigeria being the most populous African nation, with a very strong economy, has a lot in terms. Forget that now America is no longer buying as much Nigerian oil as it was before. But there is so much to be done. Not just waiting for anything to drop on your laps. You have to work at it. That is the AGWA, the equal opportunity agreement, where some 7,000 commodities are being traded, and then the trade there is going up from almost now at more than 11 trillion dollars, in 38 countries. I don't know what Nigeria is doing, but the relationship is about trade and then aid, USAID and others. But Nigeria should be thinking about gaining more from the trade. Aid had never been anything that can help anybody. Given the volume and then resources that Nigeria has, Nigeria shouldn't really be thinking about aid. Even though all countries can do with loan and all that, countries are interdependent. But at the same time, I think Nigeria should up its game in terms of what it can sell, what it can export to America, and not just buying. Okay. I think that is where Nigeria, and then in terms of cultural exchanges, and then, in that area, remember, Jide was just talking about some 3 Nigerians of, 3 Americans with Nigerian descent going there to win elections. That is the kind of collaboration that should be seen. And then Nigerians are there in their number, because home is not it's not where there is attractive. I think there should be the reverse. Nigeria in the diaspora in America can bring back their wealth. Nigeria at home, the government and everybody should make it possible for them to be able to bring whatever it is that they have gained. Not just the transfers that they are doing. They can bring expertise. They can come home, the medical field, in engineering, in science, in all areas. I think that is where Nigeria should be looking at.
All right, but let's not even get ahead of ourselves too much. Let me ask this. What if President Trump refuses to leave the White House by January 20? Has that occurred to you? I think
what he's doing now is just kicking like somebody that is drowning. Look at what he didn't think. By the way, he never thought he would become president in 2016, and it happened. And here, he probably never thought that he will one day leave, because that is his character. That is the nature of Donald Trump. You listen to his family members, Mary and others who are talking about him, saying that the family had bequeathed to the world a very dangerous person in Donald Trump. But that is his character. He cannot change. But again, I can assure you that whatever he's doing, the American system is strong enough, is resilient enough to, take him out, no matter the way he wants it. I think that system is old enough and has gone through a lot, over 200 years, to know what they can do with a Donald Trump that refuses to. And I think, so. Like Jide was thinking, I think between now and a few days, he would have seen that the game is over. With all the, most of the world leaders congratulating Biden. What is he going to do? Will he now turn back? By the way, in 2000, and Al Gore had, considered to George Bush, but later tried to challenge that decision. But eventually, in the name of the country, he came back and then accepted. So I think Donald Trump will see reason and then maybe not concede, but those around him will. They are talking about him coming back in 4 years or 5 years time. That would be a soft landing for him. Just prime him that it's not over.
All right. Paul Ejime, International Affairs Analyst, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Insights.
Thank you very much.
And also a great deal of thanks here to Jide Ojo. Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst, it's been a pleasure having you join us.
The pleasure is mine. Thanks for having me.
It's now time for the media review segment. Elizabeth, it's all yours.
Journalists across the globe often face violence and intimidation for exercising their fundamental rights to freedom of expression. The range of threats they are confronted with include murder, kidnapping, hostage-taking, harassment, intimidation, enforced disappearance, and torture. How do we ensure the safety of journalists as they receive, produce, and share information without facing physical or moral threats? My guest, Emmanuel Obeche, Chairman, Nigerian Union of Journalists, FCT Chapter, will provide answer. Mr. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, now tell us, I'm glad you are familiar with the terrain. Are Nigerian journalists safe or totally exposed to threats?
Well, if we go by the safety index, Nigeria is ranked 118 out of 180 countries. That tells you that not just because of this administration, it's been a recurring decimal that journalists in Nigeria and media practitioners in general aren't safe, because we have a situation where state and non-state actors think that journalists are game. That is, they are simply there for them to be harassed, intimidated, and sometimes murder. Because I saw you missed out the issue of killings. Journalists have been killed, not just by state actors, but also non-state actors, because if you remember not too long ago, media houses were targets of terrorist attacks, including here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. So, by and large, one will say that journalists in Nigeria are not particularly safe, because nowhere in the world, even in America, can one exactly say that journalists are safe. The kind of job we do by holding governments and its officials accountable to the people extracting their activities naturally will put you at risk.
Okay. Oftentimes, like you said, media practitioners face a lot on the field. Is there a form of protection that comes with the profession?
Well, your first guarantee of safety is that you must be ready to be professional. Okay. You must be objective. You must be balanced. But those are basic. Those are basic issues or basic professional ethics. But to say that safety in itself is a guarantee by the state. The state must first of all provide the conducive environment for the practice of journalism, for journalists and media practitioners. That is the first guarantee. Because if the state demonstrates its capacity, its willingness and readiness to ensure that journalists are safe, either through legislation or enforcement of the law, then one can be confident that journalists and media practitioners will be safe. But where there is an apparent lack of the provision of state security, then you just have to rely on being professional at all times, hoping that those you're reporting on and for will be kind enough, underline the word, kind enough, not to make you a subject of their threats, intimidation, harassment, murder, and torture.
Okay. When we talk about threats on the job, don't you think at a point this could affect judgments and objectivity?
Of course, obviously. As a journalist, if I know that I am to report Corporation A in a manner that is objective and in a manner that I think I owe society a duty to expose perhaps the underhand dealings of Corporation A, and I know that there is no guarantee for my safety, there is no guarantee that I will not be harmed, then it impairs judgment. It impairs your ability to work without let. You understand? But when you're ruled by fear, when you're ruled by the fact that you could be kidnapped, when you're ruled by the fact that your family members could be in danger, you understand? What do? Either you naturally forget about reporting on the activities of such a corporation or individuals, or you bear the risk and say, okay, simply because I want to serve society and live by the conduct of what, the profession entails, then I will become a sacrificial lamb. It does impair judgment when you're faced with threats.
Okay, talking about threats, do we have legislations backing the profession here in Nigeria?
Well, that has been our clamor, that government needs to create that environment where the journalists operate without let or hindrance, where the safety of journalists does not become a matter of debate. There is no specific rules of engagement for journalists in this country, whether by government or individuals. You understand? That is why, unfortunately, if you remember not too long ago, last year, 2019, when a cover journalist with one of the TV stations here was killed covering a protest by the Shiite Islamic movement of Nigeria, here. It's become a recurring decimal. During the COVID-19 1 and 2 lockdowns, journalists were subject of abuse, subject of intimidation and harassment by and from security agencies. You get it. And also, not just too long ago when the NSAS protest was all over almost the whole part of the country, journalists were subject of attack. So there is no enforceable legislation or rules of engagement in which we can, as journalists, take shelter under. That is why we keep calling upon the federal government, state government, and even local authorities to come up with that rules of engagement, especially for security agencies, that they should see the journalists as partners in progress, partners in ensuring that there is harmony and there is stability in this country.
Okay. Now, talking about harassment, intimidation, torture, how has the NUJ been handling such issues?
Thank you very much. What we have done is to offer refresher courses for our colleagues and our members across the country. That first of all, if, for instance, you need to cover a protest, you must be properly kitted. with a vest that indicates that you're from the media or the press. You should also be aware of your environment and vicinity. And you should, when you're aware of your vicinity and it is not conducive for you to have a live broadcast, do not put yourself in danger. We do not think that any journalist should become the story in the process of reporting the news. You understand? So we try to now and then give out guidelines on how journalists should be aware of threats around the environment. If you're driving, you should be aware if there is a particular car or individual that is trailing you, and avoid the issue of always following the same route consistently. And, it isn't just about the physical threat. These days, journalists are exposed to cyber threats. You understand? And journalists are expected to have the knowledge about how to protect themselves from cyber threats and terrorism. Because consistently, governments across the world are always monitoring journalists. They are always trying to get into your mobile devices to find out what you're doing. So it is not a matter that it is about Nigeria. So we encourage our members to also go online and make research on how to avoid cyber threats and monitoring.
Okay. Before I take you on the next question, you talked about when the journalist becomes the story. So how has the NUJ been able to handle such situations when the journalist becomes the story? Let's talk about death, harassment, female harassment.
Yes.
How do you handle the family, the organization, and even the society?
Yes. Unfortunately, we've had instances where the NUJ had to bear the brunt of supporting families of members that have died in the course of the performance of their job. I remember a particular incident here in Abuja where a journalist was shot, or according to the police, he fell on a boulder while covering child protests late last year. And the NUJ had to ensure all through the process. We were majorly responsible for funding of the autopsy and followed up with the police authorities in securing the release of the corpse. We tried to lend support to bereaved families. We also are in the process of having a journalist support fund. That fund is designed to offer assistance to members that one way or the other have lost their breadwinner or have become disadvantaged, either lost a limb or can no longer function properly. So those are some of the initiatives we are looking at the moment.
Okay, I would like to take you back to the issue of COVID-19. Journalists were so active during the emergence of the infection in Nigeria. Now, talking about precaution, is it that we do not have enough sensitization? Talking about a spike in the number of cases we are having.
Well, I think...
What is the level of sensitization as a journalist?
Well, I think the federal government in particular has done very well, one must admit, because immediately this happened, the Presidential Task Force was set up, which has consistently briefed the media and the public on its activities and has rolled out guidelines. I think the fundamental here is about our sociological environment, where we are conditioned to believe that the average Nigerian has this tenacity to withstand every adversity or the outbreak of any disease, because it's simple. The government has reached out to faith-based organizations. Government has reached out to mosques and churches. everywhere you go, everywhere you turn, on the radio. And I must commend the media because basically we took it as a social contract.
Okay.
Jingles were aired for free. Jingles, were produced by various media organizations. And let me thank the NTA for free.
Thank you.
And these were broadcast at every time, and it's still happening. But I think Nigerians need to realize that we are dealing with a very novel virus, the coronavirus, and it requires all hands to be on deck and follow the protocols that have been established. It isn't that the awareness was lacking or is lacking, but it is adherence. Because it's very difficult to enforce, what government has established, because people will have to take public transportation, people will have to go to the markets, people will have to engage in one commercial activity or the other. I think it is about the willingness of the people to follow what government has put in place. That is it. If not, the media has done its part, its social contract, by informing the people.
Okay, I'd like to take you back to the issue of violence, reporting during violence. I could remember vividly I spoke to a colleague of yours last week on verification. Now, during the NSAS protest that was hijacked by hoodlums, so many journalists out there bringing in stories, finding them, receiving them, and then sharing on different platforms. Now, verification is another problem, and we understand that some media houses were actually sanctioned. What is your position on verification of facts?
Well, that's been a very controversial one. We are all students of journalism, and we know the place of amateur videos in reporting. Sometimes it's difficult. The lines are blurred. The lines are very thin between what is real and what is not, especially during conflict and violence. We must be very careful. If you're not sure, that's the cardinal point, you leave out. You understand? Because truth is sacred. If you're not sure of your facts, you leave out. But sometimes also, that we have what is called eyewitness report. And it's difficult for some of those visuals to have been manufactured or tampered with. What I think is that we must draw a line between social stability and harmony and between reporting the news as it were. I think government too needs to give the media some sort of break, because people are eager to want to know what's happening, especially during the NSAS protest. And the danger of not having the traditional media reporting is that you allow social media with all its uncensored and biased and inflammatory, citizens report to run. Because by and large, I don't know when last you took a public bus. I try to do that. You will hear Nigerians tell you, I watched it on TV. I read it in the newspaper. I listened to it in the radio. That tells you the believability of the citizens concerning traditional media. So that's why government needs to also find a way, and try to see how they can cooperate with the mass media in such instances.
Okay. So reporting violence, are there precautionary steps to be taken to avoid being kidnapped, killed, or being intimidated?
First, let me say that there are no foolproof measures.
Okay.
You understand, when it comes to the issue of being a target for those that are determined. But primary precautions are key. You get it. If you, as a journalist, you should be aware of your surroundings, like I said earlier. You should also have the contact of colleagues and of security forces or agents that you can easily reach out to in the event of an emergency. And I also think that it is important that as journalists, we shouldn't always have on our phones bank alerts and bank transactions, and because kidnappers generally, when they kidnap you, the first thing they do is to go for your mobile device to try to find out who you are, what you're worth, and all of those. Not that we worth much anyway, but a little information in any of the mobile devices on you could simply make you a major target. I think we must also look at objectivity and professionalism so that we do not become easy prey to these individuals.
Threat actually is a global phenomenon. Journalists across the globe are familiar with threats any day, anytime. It will come in form of either a call, or they walk up to you, or they threaten you, either at work, on the street, or anywhere. How do we secure lives?
Well, securing lives is it's majorly those of the security apparatus. Yes, it's kind of tough. Ours is to report, ours is to ensure that people are aware. But I think that we can offer a guide, because we report security most times more than the average citizen. So it's in our place to also give tips to fellow citizens. That is what I can say in that direction.
Yeah, okay. So I need you to give us a brief on the relationship between NUJ and the police. They will have a strong synergy.
Well, over the years, over the years, there has always been mutual suspicion between the journalists and the police. But here in FCT, Nigeria's federal capital, we have a very robust relationship, not just with the police, but with other security agencies. I think that both professions or callings should understand that they are working towards one goal: the peace of society, the security of society. While you are securing it, I am also reporting on what you're doing. So there ought to be that synergy, so that there wouldn't be a clash of interests and of egos, basically. So it is very important, not just about the police, but that all security agencies, because the journalist can also act as an intelligence officer to you. And you also need the journalist to inform society about what you're doing in terms of securing, the country and society at large. So it should be a symbiotic relationship where we interrogate each other mutually without suspicion.
Mutually.
Yes.
All right, finally, before I let you go, what would be your word of advice to journalists as they go about their duty, their profession?
Well, my advice, as usual, to colleagues, to journalists and media practitioners is that being a journalist is a privilege. It is a calling. It is divine. And it has a constitutional guarantee. Okay. And that constitutional guarantee demands that you must be above board for you to hold others accountable to society. You understand? So you cannot sell your integrity. You cannot impinge on your own integrity when you hope to bring others to question. You understand? So you must remain professional, you must remain objective, you must seek for balance, and you must work for societal good, for societal peace, for sustainable development, and for integration. That is the objective.
All right, Mr. Emmanuel Ogbeche, Chairman, Nigerian Union of Journalists, FCT Chapter, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me here.
Coming to our studio to enlighten us. Thank you very much. And that's it on the Media Review segment this week.
And that does it for this edition of Insight. Elizabeth.
We'll see you next week. Keep watching Insight.
And my name is Victor Azu. Bye-bye for now.